Hi, my friend Calvin here. As you can see, my friend Bamba is joining me today. Let's welcome Bamba. Okay, it has been about more than 2 weeks since I had uploaded my last video to my YouTube channel. I've been quite busy with my full-time work, and I also traveled to another city for taking pre-wedding pictures. In today's video, I'd like to talk about equation of success. You're probably thinking that how arrogant the topic we're going to talk about today is. The reason we're going to talk about this topic is because I think it's very important for anyone if they want to succeed in any field. We're not coming up with a equation that is going to work for anyone, but it's gonna work in most cases. Today we're going to take financial success, financial dimension as an example, the equation of financial success that I came up with. Let's get started without further ado. Actually, before we start, please don't forget to destroy the like button below and smash the subscribe button if you haven't. Thank you very much for your support. When it comes to equation of success, many people would doubt that someone can come up with an equation of success that would at least work in most cases, if not in all cases, because technically speaking, no one really succeed in coming up with a success equation. Like, no one really come up with a success equation that is similar to a Newton's equation, like force equals mass times acceleration, like that. But still, we're going to talk about that today. You probably have read a lot of books about success and being successful, whether it's through entrepreneur or other efforts, and you probably have attended many motivational speeches and other motivational books like Think and Grow Rich, 4-Hour Workday, Rich Dad and Poor Dad. Some of them talked about success equation, but if you think carefully, they don't define what a success is. They don't define success. They just talk about success and feel like they have an equation, but not really. They don't even define the success at first place. So it's really weird. And in today's video, we're going to start by defining success and then talk about the factors that possibly determine success or success level. Let's get started. We're going to define success by how well a person did in a given dimension, whether it's finance, or it's chess, or horse riding, or shooting, anything you can imagine. You define the dimension, and then whoever did well is more successful than whoever didn't do well. So that's easy, right? When we define it that way, it's obvious that success is relative and it's also subjective. For example, I can say beating 50% of people in chess is success, but you probably would think that's not success. You probably would think that beating 90% of people is success. Why? Because success is subjective and it changes over time. It's not fixed over time. For example, I can say now beating 50% of people in chess is a success, but I probably wouldn't think that beating 50% of people after 2 years is still a success. I probably would increase that percent to 90% or maybe 80%. That means after 2 years, I would think beating 80% of people is a success. I wouldn't think beating 75% of people is a success. But as you can see, the general direction is there. The general direction is that beating more people is more successful than beating fewer people. So that's our definition of success, and it's prone to subjective cutoff line or cutoff range. That means we're studying the topic by defining a success in a relatively scientific way instead of saying, oh, this person is the greatest insurance seller in the United States. You know, that's like BSing, right? The good thing about science is that in science, people would try to measure everything. Measure the size, measure the diameter, or measure the heat, temperature, all that, right? Once we're clear about what a success is, we can easily figure out the factors that determine success. Now let's use financial dimension as an example dimension and figure out the factors that determine the financial success. Why financial? Because most people would think that financial is very important in their day-to-day life and consider financial heaviest in the definition of general success. That's the reason. That's the reason we would think that financial is a good example. As you already noticed that it is from observation and assumption and from experience, not from strictly mathematically correct computation. But it still works, right? It's approximation. In the dimension of finance, it's obvious that dollar is quite objective, but it's actually not, because dollar can inflate and the value would change over time. Instead, I think we should use more objective value, because think about it, $100,000 10 years ago was much more than $100,000 now due to inflation. So we're going to use instead more objective measurement, which is percentile. That would be how much money you have compared to other people in percentile in the population. That way we can actually compare people across timeline, across history, and determine how wealthy they are. For example, you can compare Jeff Bezos with Aristotle. So that's our definition of financial success. The higher your percentile in the net worth is, the more successful you are in terms of finance. So with that definition, it's obvious that the first thing that determines your financial success is your income. That's how much money you make every year. Normally, rich people make money from more than one sources, typically 3 to 5 sources. That would include like stock dividends, bond interest, royalties, music publishing rights, rental incomes. These are not like part-time job. They don't have to actively work on it. These are passive income, but still they would contribute significantly to their income. So number one factor is income. That's how much money actually goes into your bank account within a year. If you think carefully, income is determined by many things, like how much tax you pay, how well you invest, how productive you are at your work, like publishing songs, writing books, or coming up with patents, like things like that. And the second factor, you can obviously tell that it is spending. That is how much money you would spend on your day-to-day life, how much money would be left in your bank account after spendings. By now you are probably thinking that why am I talking about such a common sense things? Right? Everybody knows income and spending determines how much money would be left in your bank account. It's so common sense. But I tell you that although almost everyone knows this equation, not many people master this equation, including myself. I'm still in the learning stage. Those who actually master this equation are often financially very successful. People often think that these are so common and they just ignore it. And that caused a lot of financial failures. I myself wouldn't consider myself as financially very successful, but I think I'm still doing very well and better than most people. That's because I kind of understand the equation, although I'm still studying it. The equation is so simple, but you still cannot ignore it. Now let's continue with the second factor, that is spending. I have a friend who would spend money like water coming through the tap. Money would come into his bank account and goes out almost instantly. And there's no money left for investing or even for emergency. And I think it's very dangerous. He would buy clothes and would only wear them for about 2 to 3 times and throw them into their closet. And then he wouldn't even look at the closet until he is about to move to another place. And he found out that there's a lot of new clothes, but he doesn't wear. He would order food online and wait at home while watching Netflix. Once in a while he would cook, but when he cooked it, he would either cook chef's plate, which is very expensive, or instant noodles. I think cooking at home would not only save a lot of money for you, but also it's very healthy. And you don't know what had gone into that particular food that you ordered, even though the restaurant was not found any violation of health or any other ethical code. For me, this kind of habit is extremely terrifying. I personally like the concept of minimalism as well as fire, not the fire, but I can't really live like that at that level of thrift. But I really don't spend or waste too much time on myself, on my food, or on my clothes. Each time when I buy clothes or buy food, I would ask myself more than once whether I would actually need it. When I think about necessity, all those flashy names and brands would just go away from my brain. And one of the reasons that I can't live a minimalism life is because I can't restrain my spending like minimalist, because I'm living with a girl and trying to build up a family. You know, when you're living with a girl, you can't do that. So what I would do is I would just make a good balance. I think there's a huge difference between being generous versus being wasteful. One can be really economical when it comes to spendings, but at the same time, he can be really generous, like in donating to charities and helping others financially. Like the last time I bought a clothes for myself was more than a year ago. That was a t-shirt from H&M. But I do donate money to local charities like Prince Margaret Foundation. And one of the good things about donating while working in my company is that you can donate a certain amount of money and the company would match that amount of money, of course with limit. For example, if I donate $500, my company would donate $500 too to match my amount. And another good thing about donating is that I can write my donation in my tax return and increase my my after-tax income. And that's the second part, spending part. Now let's talk about the third part, which is a huge part. I call this part as luck or unluck, because these are the combination of things that you cannot control or you have limited influence on. For example, being born to a rich family is obviously luckier than being born to a poor family in terms of finance. And being born with a bright mind and very smart brain and very strong body is obviously much luckier than being born with a weak body, retard, and with disease. And being born to an civilized, peaceful society is obviously much luckier than being born to an uncivilized old society. You can't control these factors, but these factors would determine your financial success. Or should I say you have limited influence. Some of these factors would determine your productivity, while others would determine where you start. So we think that success in finance equals to income minus spending times So we think that success in finance equals to income minus spending times time times productivity times luck. Income minus spending is easy to understand. We just talked about it, right? Luck is a combination of many factors that you cannot control, such as the social and economic status of your family where you're born to, your house when you were born, and a bunch of other things like weather and all that. And productivity is about how smart you are, how much training you have received, how much education you have gotten, etc., and the tools that you're using. Whereas time is about focus and effort. Some people call it focus, other people call it effort. It's easy to understand because one can be really smart, but if he or she doesn't spend enough time on the subject, he or she cannot be really successful. So what I just discussed is an oversimplification of interactions of millions of factors that determine your success. Even the activity of sun can influence your success. Think about it. If the sun projects too much radiation, which reaches the earth and affects Earth's magnetic power, which in turn changes the weather of the earth, which in turn changes your crops and its harvest, and eventually would change how much you would get out of your farm. And that's financial success. And the factors that we can control are income, spending, productivity, and time. You can't really control luck. Well, some people would say yes. So that's to say that we can control how much money we can earn, how much money we can spend, how much training we would get, how much time we would spend on the subject, whether you are working in the mining or restaurant or writing or anything that can make money for you. That's my credo of financial success, and it didn't come out of mathematically strict computations. Instead, it came out of observation and experience. And actually, that's all I want to talk about today in this video. And if you find this video is interesting, please don't forget to just try the like button below, smash the subscribe button if you haven't, and as always, I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.